I don't know how he's going to do it now, but our next guest is our man behind the scenes. It's Hugo. Yeah, it's Hugo. Hugo Guerra, who's director and VFX supervisor. He's going to be talking about cinematics, I believe. Hugo first came to prominence as head of the nuke department and VFX soup at the Mill with clients like Audi, Adidas, Nike, IKEA, Activision, and Ubisoft. He's universally known in the VFX industry for Hugo's Desk on YouTube and co-host of the VFX Notes podcast with Ian Fales from Before and Afters. He's also worked at Fire Without Smoke, directing game cinematics for CCP, Ubisoft, Deep Silver, Square Enix, and Warhammer, as well as being the VFX suit for Sony PlayStation and a film director for Rebellion Studios and Zeiss. Hopefully he's going to be able to do two things at once and be in two places at once. Here's Hugo Guerra. A round of applause.
Yeah, just good. Well, thanks for showing the whole presentation, huh? Yeah, can you? Okay, I see. We're on the last slide. That's great. Can you just go to the first one, please? I know. It's like, okay, well, we can go now.
9 minutes left.
What does it do? Wait. No, stop. A lot, but I'm going to be really quick. I'm going to be super quick. You're going to see. I'm going to be super quick. You guys are going to never even going to understand what I've said. Yeah, please don't look. Okay, here you go, please. Yes, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so welcome everyone, and thank you again. First of all, thank you. Sorry for this little inconvenience. It's always a bit of a garbage truck on fire whenever I'm involved. So apologies for that. And of course, I would like to thank the Visual Effects Society for inviting me, and of course, the Visual Effects Society for the Landlord chapter for inviting me, and for everyone that made this event possible, for all these amazing guests. It's been really great to be all with you, and of course, with everyone over there as well. Hello, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to be really quick. My name is Hugo. I'm a director and visual effects supervisor. I brought a show reel because I was told that I only had 10 minutes, so I brought a 29-second show reel. So we're going to watch it. Okay, any questions? It's done now. I don't have anything else to say. Okay, so, well, joking around. This is going to be a bit of a different presentation. My idea would be to show you my journey of how I ended up working in games. Well, first in visual effects, and then games, and then visual effects again. And so instead of being a more technical talk, I just wanted to give you a bit of insight to the journey and why we went through those rabbit holes of gaming. So, of course, it's with some time skips, omissions, and some NDAs as well, because there's certain things I can't talk about. The whole thing starts here. I was born in Portugal, more precisely in Porto, just like my dear friend here, Ricardo. There's at least 2 people from Porto here, which is great. So I've worked on a lot of different companies, both visual effects and game related. So more famously, of course, by the Mill, I was the head of the new compositing over there. Also Fire.Smoke, I was a cinematic director there for a while. At Rebellion as well, and at London Studio Sony as well. And of course, Nexus as well here in London. And I've worked with a lot of different clients and a lot of different games over the years. And that kind of all started really for me on set. I've always been on set a lot of times, and I've always tried to be doing some kind of filmmaking thing. And so I've always was a lot of it on set. That's my background. It's 2D really. And so I was always doing these kind of things, like putting weird spheres and holding checkered boards in weird places. These are some of the cinematics that I've worked on. I've done, some of these are trailers that I've done. Some of them have been cinematics. Some of them have been in-game cinematics. Others have been like just marketing trailers for the project. The last one I did was for Sniper Elite 5, which I directed the cinematic to introduce the game. That was the last. But how did this all begun, really? This is me, by the way, when I had a lot more hair. And so it kind of started when my father asked me if I wanted to have a bicycle or a Spectrum Sinclair. You probably already know what I did. I picked the Sinclair, and of course that's why I'm a bit chubby, of course, because I still to this day, I can't ride the bicycle yet. And of course this was what photoreal graphics looked like at the time. I thought this was real. I mean, at least at the time it looked great. But it still is, exactly. So fast forward, you know, I also had a huge passion for cinema, so I was quite obsessed with Eisenstein. I was quite obsessed with, well, Eisenstein. I'm quite obsessed with Kubrick. I'm still obsessed with Kubrick. And then the three Davids. I am obsessed with David Cronenberg, David Lynch, and David Fincher. And so then with all of this, I loved cinema, loved games. I went to art school. And because, you know, back in the 90s, that's what people used to do. They used to go to art school. And I did that. I went there. I did my master's degree in art. And then from there, while I was there, by doing video art, I learned After Effects 3.1. That was kind of like the starting point, starting to go into the visual effects world. I still have quite a lot of those softwares. I actually have the After Effects 3.1 box still, and the After Effects 5, which was the first ones I used at the time. Now, back there in Portugal, when I finally finished my art degree, I actually ended up doing a lot of video art, a lot of films, and I ended up doing this piece of crap. This is like my first project. I was 19, and it's a really terrible movie. This is like the Ninja dos Caldas, which is the ninja of the place where I was studying. And this is a really, really crappy movie, all shot on video white. The whole thing is edited video to video. It's a monumental piece of crap, but it was the first thing I did. You know, I was 18, I was 19, 18 while I was doing it. It took me a year. We were quite lucky. It actually ended up being broadcast in TV, so it became a bit of a viral thing in Portugal. It was broadcasted in TV, although it looks like this, but it was quite nice. And so I even went to TV to talk about it. Look at it, that's me. When I was young, I even went and did that as well on a show that Ricardo probably know, Cabra da Coxa, which is the show that I don't think it exists anymore. Oh, it still exists. Okay. Well, it's been running for 20 years then. That's fine. This was 23 years ago, by the way. So fast forward, then I did of course, I did a lot of, yes, 5 minutes. Did a lot of work. You know, I'm going to go faster then. Then went to Sweden, then worked in Sweden, then learned Shake, then learned Combustion, then learned Final Cut, then learned Nuke. Went through there, you know, learned Nuke as well, then did more crap commercials and more crap stuff. Then, of course, continued teaching to people and teaching on set and teaching at schools as well. Always really enjoyed teaching. Finally moved to Britain. This was 17 years ago. Worked at Nexus for a while. Very talented people at Nexus. I love working there, and they do some amazing work as well. I'm going to just scroll through. Eventually, I ended up going to the Mill. The Mill was when I finally for the first time, started working in games, which was my dream from the beginning when I was 6 years old, when you saw that photo. There I did my first cinematic, which was for Body Count. Terrible game, don't play it. But you know, it was really nice to work on this game. I was the lead composer of this project. I was the only composer of the project, so I was leading myself. But it was quite interesting because this was the first time I ended up like having assets from a game, and we had to use the assets and then kind of build the assets and convert them to mental ray, and we had all this thing of getting packages from the game studio. It kind of like started the whole thing inside the Mill, and also for me as well. Fast forward, of course, I continued working at the Mill. At the later stage at the Mill, when I was already a cinematic visual effects supervisor, I then worked on, for a huge team at the Mill, we worked on Call of Duty Ghost cinematics. These were the in-game cinematics of the project. And again, it was the kind of same process. We were bringing in the assets from the game and then converting them, and then kind of like applying some of our pipeline of visual effects to do cinematic feeling movies, you know, either marketing pieces or, in this case, these were story plot driven videos. I then left the Mill because I couldn't stand doing this every day. I also couldn't really stand having clients next to me the whole time because I had a suite at the Mill. And going back to one of the differences that we were talking about the games industry is that sometimes we don't have a client right next to it. It's a bit different. So I started working from home. This is my office in my house where I work these days. And then I started working for Fire.Smoke. I was the cinematic director for Fire.Smoke. Fire.Smoke is an agency here in London that does a lot of game trailers and a lot of cinematics. And with that, I then ended up doing Just Cause 3, which we did a lot of cinematics and trailers for it. I'm going to go because Saint is giving you the evil eye. So, and then I ended up also doing Homefront: The Revolution, which was the first time we actually had an in-house, an in-game cinematic. So these were the cinematics that were playing when you booted up the game for the first time. And I had this idea of making it in live action. So at the time we did it in live action. This was like 2017, I think, or something like that. So we did it with motion control. We did it with the assets of the game as well. I'm going to go faster as well. Ended up doing some cinematics for Heroes Arena as well, which was a much more completely normal visual effects pipeline where we had the assets from the games, but we convert them to Redshift, and we actually convert them to Dini and Maya, ended up using a regular visual effects pipeline to output the cinematics, but with the game studio involved because we were sharing assets backwards and forwards. From there, we ended up like doing some cinematics for the crew, Calling All Cars. Unfortunately, the game has been delisted, so it's not possible to play this game anymore. Some stuff for The Walking Dead as well, and then eventually I wanted to focus a little bit on this one because this one was a turning point for Fire.Smoke. We ended up working on this trailer for Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and this was the first time we actually started using the engine itself. This was something started at Fire.Smoke where for the first time we got the builds of the game much earlier than everyone else. We would get the games months before the game was even done. Sometimes the builds would be even incomplete. You know, sections of the game would be grayscale. But we started getting the engines into the studio. So I packed my things, went to Paris, to Ubisoft, got my creme brulee and got into Ubisoft. I stayed there for like a couple of months working with the team, and we then did cinematic trailers for Mario Rabbids. And this was the first time we started using an engine. This was Snowdrop at the time. And we started like this was much earlier than Unreal. It was like before everyone loves Unreal now. This was like much, much earlier. And when we started looking at this engine, we started developing methodologies of doing alpha channels and doing AOVs as well. So we could not only render out the CG into a regular visual effects pipeline, but also kind of render it out of the engine with passes and AOVs. So this is the engine of the Mario game, and then these are some of the passes we got, and this is, these are some of the AOVs. The funny thing with this is that at the time when I was at their office, I said, oh, okay, so let's render it in EXR. And they've made a pipeline for us to get the EXR AOVs so we can go to compositing and actually do the shots and then make the trailers. And then they were so apologetic because they turned to me and said, oh, but Hugo, we're going to render to EXR, but unfortunately, we can only render at 10 frames per second. So I'm so sorry we can't render it at 60. And I was like, that's fine. 10 frames per second is more than enough. And we ended up like doing the cinematic. Now, unfortunately, we did a lot of shots for it. The cinematic kind of went backwards and forwards. Ubisoft ended up like doing different shots. We didn't, oh, sorry, I'm now going forward too much. Oh, I can't go back. Okay, that's good. That's good that I can't go back. So never mind that. That's good that I can't go back. This is Vermintide. This is one of the last projects I did also with live action. Again, for Warhammer, where we again implemented a lot of the typical visual effects industry of shooting on set, of having miniatures, of having compositing and CG and matte paintings into something that would be inside a game, either as an in-game cinematic or as a marketing piece to, introduce the game to the world. In this case, this was the reveal trailer for this game, for Vermintide 2. And I guess I'm going to just we don't need to see these breakdowns. You guys can see it. This was very peculiar as well. So for about a year, this is something I really wanted to address, which is if you decide to go to the games industry, a lot of your projects won't really see the light of day. This happened to me 7 times already, and this was the last time that it happened to me already. I worked for 2 years on this VR project for an undisclosed company and an undisclosed studio, which I will never be able to see. Maybe I'll say it on my deathbed. And this project was 2 years of my life, and it was canceled because of COVID. So get ready for that. Unfortunately, that happens, but I was still paid. I still got a salary. That's fine. And then I think the last project I just did was Rebellion. Did Sniper Elite 5's trailer. This was, again, the same kind of deal, getting a lot of, all of these were assets from the game. We then ended up applying a completely typical visual effects pipeline where we used their mocap system to actually capture all the animation we needed for the trailers and cinematics we were doing. And then the rest was just typical compositing, rendering in Redshift and compositing in Nuke. I'm going to just go for it because I'm out of time, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so follow my HUGOSDESK YouTube channel. Of course, I have the podcast with Ian Fels, VFX Notes podcast. So what have I learned since '99? Well, I just learned that I actually don't know anything, and I'm constantly learning and adapting. And if anything has taught me over these years is that it doesn't really matter what you're doing as long as you have this set of skill sets that you can transfer from project to project and company to company. It doesn't really matter if I was doing video art or if I was doing games or if I was doing a CG trailer, or if I was doing a commercial or a short film. All of the knowledge I know from composition and lighting and photography can be transferred because softwares are just softwares. And you just need to be as agnostic as possible and use any of them. And I hope that was something. It's 10 minutes, so that's fine. Yes. There you go. Yes,
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks, folks. And yeah, that's Hugo, the Jack Reacher of VFX. Never go back. Yeah.